Like Joey says, we get the $3 million mansion all to ourselves. You guys better pack up and leave that house quick. Hold on. How can you tell us to leave? That's mine and my mom's home. Where are you expecting us to go? Why don't you and the old lady live in the park? What? I'm at a loss for words at my brother's wife Dina's attitude when my mother quietly steps in. We get it. In that case, we'll gladly leave. She says with a smile which makes me panic. Has Mom lost her senses from the shock of Dad's death? Mom, what are you saying? Mom calmly stops my frantic reaction. Let me handle this, dear. Please, Cindy, trust me. It was Mom who always supported me in that house. I couldn't say no when she asked me so earnestly. All right, I'll follow your decision, Mom. Hearing this, Dina quickly calls back my brother. What's up, Dina? You look all worked up. My brother arrives, led by Dina. Joey, your mom and Cindy are giving up the inheritance. What, really? Did you convince them? Oh, well. Great job, Dina, my brother says joyfully. If that's settled, then hurry up and get ready to leave. And so, my mother and I, still not fully convinced, leave the house. Are you sure about this? Won't you regret it? Don't worry, I'm not the one who'll regret this. I only understood what Mom meant 3 months later. I'm Cindy. I live with my father, mother, and my brother Joey, who's 7 years older. Dad was an investor, and I never remembered us struggling for money. I'm grateful for the affluent life, but I've always been a bit uneasy around my dad. He was a textbook example of male chauvinism, always favoring my brother since we were kids. As a result, I hardly have any memories of being praised by him. Mom was always kind to both Joey and I, but even she was ridiculed by Dad. By the time I was aware, Joey was completely influenced by Dad, joining in mocking me and Mom. Dad, I feel like having meat today. Can we go out to eat? Knowing that Mom was preparing dinner, Joey begged Dad. Dad agreed happily. All right, let's go have some delicious steak. As they get ready to leave, Mom would hurriedly speak up. Are you going out now? Dinner is already prepared. Dad would coldly reply. Joey wants meat. He doesn't want your boring cooking. Have dinner with Cindy. What? You're going with just Joey? What about Cindy and I? Mom would ask in surprise, to which Dad mockingly responded. You women wouldn't understand good meat. Just stay home. I was at shock, but Joey would whisper to me. It's natural for a man like me to be treated differently than a girl like you. Ha ha. Just stay quiet and take care of the house. Ha ha. I'll never forget the look on my brother's face as he said that, laughing. But the reason I grew up to be so cheerful is because of my mother, who always genuinely cared for me. Your brother is much older. He'll probably get married and leave this house before you, Cindy. Then Dad will realize the value of having a daughter. That's how Mom always encouraged me. A few years later, my brother brought home his fiancée. Her name was Dina, and she was a year older than me. Beautiful, but reserved and quiet. Mom and I tried our best to make conversation with her. What did you like about Joey, Dina? Dina quietly smiled and replied, I fell for Joey because he's manly and reliable. Where will the wedding be? We plan to have it at a location Joey chooses. My brother nodded in satisfaction. Dina's a rare, modest woman these days. I've had many gold diggers come at me, but Dina's different. Dina blushed slightly at my brother's praise, murmuring shyly, I couldn't possibly outshine a remarkable man like Joey. I thought his masculinity came from his father, a respectable man. Dad seemed to take an instant liking to Dina. Ah, a well-raised girl. Rare nowadays, one who knows how to support a man. Then Dad told my brother and Dina, Joey, you haven't decided on a new home yet, have you? You should live here with us. Huh? I was stunned by Dad's sudden declaration. We'll remodel this house for 2 families. Bella, arrange everything before Joey and Dina return from their honeymoon. Mom was also flustered by Dad's sudden decision. Wait a minute, Cindy is still here. They don't need to live with us. Dad cut her off sternly. What? Are you a wife talking back to your husband? Maybe you should learn something from Dina. Joey's needs come before Cindy's. Dad pushed through with his decision and the house was remodeled for 2 families. My brother and Dina moved in. Even after my brother's marriage, the way Dad treated me didn't change. He continued to favor only Joey and Dina. Joey, taking advantage of Dad's favoritism, often asked him for money. Dad, I'm thinking of getting a car soon. Which luxury car should I get? A luxury car? It suits me, right? Will you get one for me as a wedding gift, Dad? You can afford it, right? All right, I'll get the cash ready. Dad, who was generous in front of Joey, started sighing more when alone. He also seemed to be getting thinner. Even though I wasn't fond of him, he was still my father. Seeing him unwell, I, as his daughter, started to worry. Mom, is something wrong with Dad? I finally asked Mom one day, but all she said was, Don't worry about it, Cindy, while smiling. A few months later, my fears were confirmed. Dad suddenly fainted, never regaining consciousness, and passed away in the hospital. The sudden death left Mom and I with no time to grieve, busy with funeral preparations. Joey, meanwhile, was fiddling with his phone, ignoring us. I couldn't help but complain. Hey, stop playing around and help us. I'm not playing, I'm looking at the news on my phone. Something you silly women wouldn't understand, haha. Dina was dutifully making coffee for him. Mom and I, having given up on any help from my brother and his wife, managed the funeral preparations by ourselves. Even as the guests arrived, we were constantly on our feet greeting them. Among the attendees were presidents of companies who had borrowed money from Dad. They immediately asked upon seeing Mom, Who's the head of the family? Mom, confused, answered, I am, but... A woman? That's not acceptable. Didn't Abraham have a son? They arrogantly demanded my brother's presence. When Joey appeared, they changed their tone. So, you're Joey. You have your father's intelligent look. Oh, thank you. I've heard a lot about you from your dad. He always said you were generous and bold, with a real talent for investing. Dad said that about me? At first, my brother was bewildered, but gradually he became pleased as the company presidents praised him. Watching this, one of the presidents said, We'd like to continue doing business with you. You're very talented. What do you think? Of course, I'll take over Dad and be the one to finance you all. Leave the money matters to me, and please keep expanding the business. The presidents left, satisfied with my brother's response. After the funeral, when I thought I could finally rest, my brother called me to the back room. Next to him, as usual, was Dina. Upon seeing me, my brother declared, I'll take over all of Dad's investment business. Shocked, I asked him, Do you realize what that means? He looked at me condescendingly and said, Of course, you saw it this afternoon, right? This world's no place for women. Only I can carry on Dad's business. He continued as if it were obvious. So I'll inherit everything, the estate and the house too. What? I thought the business was one thing, but the inheritance should be divided among the family. Hold on, taking over the business is one thing, but the inheritance is another. Legally, it should be divided between Mom, you, and I. Let's discuss this properly. My brother, ignoring me, retorted, Shut up, I'm the patriarch now. You, a woman, have no say in this. He stormed off, reminiscent of our father. I desperately called out to Dina, who was about to follow him. Wait, Dina, I want to talk more with my brother. Can't you persuade him? Persuade? Dina's kind smile vanished, replaced by a spiteful grin. Why should I? We're about to get the inheritance. Dina? Stunned by her sudden change, Dina threatened me. Joey's right. We'll get the assets and this $3 million mansion. You and your mom better leave this house quickly. Well, wait. Even if you tell us to leave, this is our home. Where are we supposed to go? Why not live in a park with your old mother? I was speechless. Then my mother appeared beside me quietly. Oh, Bella. Seeing my mother, Dina hastily reverted to her subdued self. We get it. We'll happily leave. my mother said with a smile, which alarmed me. Had the shock of losing my father driven her insane? Mom, what are you saying? My mother calmly hushed me. Let me handle this. But, please, Cindy, trust me. She had always been my support in that house. How could I refuse her earnest request? All right, I'll follow your decision, Mom. Hearing this, Dina quickly called my brother back. What's wrong, Dina? You look upset. My brother returned, led by Dina. Joey, Bella and Cindy have agreed to give up the inheritance. Really? Did you persuade them? Huh? Well, good job, Dina, my brother said, pleased. If that's settled, then prepare to leave quickly. So, reluctantly, my mother and I left the house. Later, she went to court with a lawyer for the renunciation of inheritance. Are you sure about this? Won't you regret it? I asked her before the procedure. She replied nonchalantly, I'm not the one who'll regret this. I only understood Mom's words 3 months later. My brother rushed to the house where my mother and I were living. Mom, Cindy, it's terrible. Dad had debts. What? While I was shocked, my mother remained calm. It seemed my brother found out about the debts from a creditor's letter addressed to our father. Why, only now, I muttered, and my brother answered, looking guilty. I didn't realize there was a letter. I learned that the day after the funeral, my brother was summoned by those company presidents and entertained. There he was informed that he would inherit all of our father's estate alone. The presidents were overjoyed, and afterwards they kept inviting him for entertainment, golf, and luxury hotel stays under the guise of company visits. Getting carried away, my brother made additional investments, quitting his job with the belief that the businesses he invested in would succeed and increase his income. However, after 3 months, the president stopped entertaining him. With time on his hands, my brother finally checked his accumulated mail and noticed the demand letters. He continued, pale-faced. I've invested all the inheritance in business. I can't pay back this huge debt. Mom, Cindy, you have to share the debt too. But my mother firmly said, That's impossible. Cindy and I have already renounced our inheritance. I don't want such a debt-ridden inheritance either. I'll renounce it. Renunciation is only possible within 3 months of inheritance. It's too late now. Besides, you've already touched Dad's estate, haven't you? That was just to supplement my living expenses after quitting my job. Using the estate for personal expenses is considered acceptance of the inheritance. Either way, you couldn't have renounced it. My brother glared at my mother. So you knew about the debt? Why didn't you tell me? You were the one who said a woman shouldn't interfere, Joey. If you had listened to Cindy's opinion and set up a discussion among us 3, I would have explained everything properly. I was glad I trusted my mother then. She had forcibly proceeded with the renunciation to prevent me from shouldering the negative inheritance. My brother, realizing everything, seethed with anger. I never thought you two could be such mean women. Dina's so different. He then had a thought. Right, I have Dina. She'll repay the debt with me without complaining. Dina does whatever I say. He left, muttering excuses. After he left, my mother chuckled. Dina listening to Joey? He's still clueless. The next day, my brother called again, as upset as when he visited yesterday. Joey, what's the matter now? Dina's gone. What? When I woke up this morning, Dina was gone. All the cash in the house and her belongings, too. My mother and I exchanged glances. Seems like Dina finally showed her true colors. My brother, heading to the living room during the call, noticed an envelope on the table. What's this? Inside, a letter read, To Joey, I have no use for a man without money. I'm taking the cash and valuables as compensation. Goodbye. Dina. And divorce papers. Dina, why? She was so obedient. As I relayed to my mother about Dina leaving and my brother's tearful voice, she took the phone and said, Dina was a shrewd girl who saw right through you. She pretended to be obedient just to marry into money. Why would she do that? Women's intuition and experience. Both you and Dad were fools to be fooled by such an act. My brother muttered faintly. It's not over yet. What do you have left? The companies I invested in. The president said they'd expand the business. The money I invested will come back in no time. That's not going to happen. Your investment in those presidents' companies won't come back. Why not? Those presidents were stuck in outdated male chauvinism. That attitude affected their business management, causing compliance issues and the downfall of their companies. But those were the companies Dad always invested in. That's why Abraham never let go of his male chauvinism. The company's performance was declining even before he died. But he refused to admit it and continued investing with loans. That debt was from that? Not just that. The pocket money and cars you begged Dad for were all bought with loans. So in a way, it's not wrong for you to pay back the debt. My mother also added, and that house is already mortgaged. If you can't repay the debt, it'll be seized soon. Better prepare to move out. She hung up without waiting for his response. My mother looked relieved after seeing everything. Later, as she said, debt collectors swarmed my brother's house and it was seized. Having lost his house, job, wife, and left with only our father's debt, my brother was taken to a live-in work site, working from dawn till dusk, just to repay the debt. Meanwhile, Dina, who ran away upon learning the inheritance was negative, seemed to have gone to another man, but got into financial trouble and police involvement. I was about to jump out of my seat when I heard that news in the living room, relaxing with my mother. Despite not having Dad's inheritance, my mother and I lived a wealthy life. Unknown to Dad, my mother had started her own business. Previously kept secret from him, it had grown enough to consider expansion after his death. My mother was living a more vibrant second life than when Dad was alive. I plan to help her and grow the company together. My current dream is to find a partner who treats men and women equally, unlike my dad and brother, and introduce him to my mother someday. Until then, I intend to enjoy this life with my mother a little longer.